I knew something was off the second my query stalled and the lights in the Detroit office flickered. Just once. Like the building coughed up something rotten. It was 6:43 a.m. Too early for ghosts. Too late to pretend nothing's wrong. Then the email hit. Subject line, organizational realignment. Body 5 words. We're making you redundant today. No HR call, no thanks for 19 years of 2 a.m. Server resets, airtight compliance reports, or biting my tongue while Tyler pretended he built the platform I coded in his shadow. Just a checklist. Like I was being booted off a cruise I never signed up for. I refreshed the screen. Still the same sterile font cold tone, and the worst part Tyler's smiley face on Slack 20 minutes later. New energy, new chapter. If you've ever been erased by a man who once asked how to unbold a PDF, imagine keeping a company afloat for 2 decades while your boss draws vision pyramids and then fires you for getting wet. But hold that thought. If you're part of the 97% who listen but haven't subscribed, now's your moment. It costs nothing, but it fuels the team behind these corporate battle hymns. And Tyler hates solidarity. So, win-win. Anyway, rage didn't come first. That arrived later, like freezer burn from a microwave burrito. What I felt was emptiness, like watching your house burn and still smelling the lemon dish soap. After the divorce, after Ellis ran off with his spin instructor and our retirement, I needed something that followed rules. Numbers made sense. Tyler didn't. He called slide decks storytelling and left early on Fridays to rebalance his aura. He hijacked my 22% cost reduction model and turned it into his Q2 highlight reel. He got applause. I got a stiff bagel and silence. I wanted to leave, many times, but the mortgage was high. My daughter needed braces, so I stayed. I endured for nearly 19 years. Until now. Fired by email, no warning, no thank you. Just Tyler's digital knife in my back at 6:52 a.m. on a gray Detroit Monday. I refreshed my screen. Access revoked. My login credentials dead. Badge already locked out. Even Marco from IT messaged me privately. Sorry, Rachel. Tyler told us to pull access immediately. I don't agree with this. I didn't reply. What was there to say? Instead, I opened my personal laptop, the one with the backup I'd quietly maintained for years. Not out of paranoia, out of necessity. Because when you work under someone like Tyler, you don't trust the glossy dashboards. You build your own. A shadow QA system encrypted and version controlled. Every discrepancy, every inflated number, every strategic vendor payment he approved. Solo really just an old fraternity buddy with a fake LLC. It was all still there, untouched, waiting. He had no idea that the system he claimed as his own had never fully been handed off. That certain views required biometric two-factor tied to me. That the platform he paraded around was built by someone he thought he could erase. Me. So I brewed a pot of coffee, poured it into my chipped world's okayest analyst mug, leaned back and whispered, "Let's begin." I always thought if they fired me, it'd come with at least a Zoom call. A hollow compliment, maybe a $50 Amazon card, and a script about restructuring. Instead, just 5 cold words. We're making you redundant today. No name, no subject line, just a link labeled Separation Logistics. I clicked. Shouldn't have. It read like a toaster manual written by a psychopath. Return all equipment by EOD. Cease system access by 11 a.m. Legal has been informed. Final paycheck per statute. That was it. 19 years reduced to 4 bullet points. I've seen scam emails with more compassion. At 10:23 a.m., my badge didn't even beep. Just a red light. Security asked, "Can I help you?" I almost laughed. "Not unless you've got a time machine." "Help me," I said, staring at the security guard. "Unless you've got a time machine and a spare spine for Tyler, nobody. You cannot help me." They asked for my laptop. I handed it over cord's charger, still warm from that morning's report. No thanks. No handshake. Just a quiet burial of everything I had built. 18 years of clean data, underpaid overtime, and silence. Then came the Slack message. Appreciate all the hard work during this transition, team, from Tyler. He knew I was still on the thread, still had Slack mobile access, still reading his digital confetti like it wasn't a victory lap over my still warm career. No personal message, no acknowledgement, just that emoji flex. I stared at the screen until it dimmed. That's when the numbness cracked. Not rage. Rage is what they expect some woman in her 40s sobbing in HR going nuclear on Facebook. This wasn't that. This was colder, precise. I opened a folder on my personal desktop labeled Archive B. Not stolen files, just receipts. Years of them. That dashboard, Tyler said, was too complex for execs. I'd built it, cleaned it, secured it, and kept a mirror version all this time, behind a two-step login. Never noticed. It held the real numbers. Not the polished ones Tyler showed at board meetings, but the truth. Flawed cost savings, vendor games, misleading churn rates. I used to tell myself it was just good QA, but now I knew better. It was leverage. Truth gift-wrapped for revenge. Then came the cherry on top. A calendar invite from HR exit interview prep. Optional. Optional. Of course, Tyler didn't show. Left it to someone who once asked if smiling could improve Q4 morale. By 2:15 p.m., my inbox deleted. By 2:45, my name vanished from the org chart. By 3:00, Tyler posted about bold leadership shifts on LinkedIn. 212 likes. I didn't cry, didn't scream, just sat on my couch, stared at the Speedway gas station across the street, and let the silence fold over me. 19 years. Gone in 6 hours. They buried me like a broken fax machine, quickly. Quietly, no pulse check. Lori from procurement called the next morning, voice soft, like someone had died. Rachel, honey, don't let this eat you alive. You gave them your best years. Walk away with your dignity. My cousin texted corporates a meat grinder. Don't get chewed up. Come visit. We'll scream at old game shows. Even my daughter, barely looking up from TikTok, muttered, sounds like that job sucked anyway. I smiled at all of them. Lied. Said I was deleting the emails. Said I'd start healing. But healing isn't what yanked me awake at 3:12 a.m., heart pounding like it was stuck in a trap. What I felt wasn't grief. It was unfinished business. So I did what always made sense, the numbers. I powered up my personal laptop, logged into the Sandbox QA system I'd quietly built during a stretch of insomnia and pure boredom. Not official, not illegal, just invisible. The dashboard flickered to life like it had missed me. If you want to know what happened after the boardroom doors closed and how far the truth really reached, hit subscribe and stay with me. The next chapter is where things get personal. I cross-referenced Tyler's last 2 board decks with raw data from operations, billing, logistics, and my stomach dropped like a snapped elevator cable. Inflated KPIs, vendor IDs that didn't match the ledger. Revenue, smoothing that screamed desperation, not strategy. On slide 12 of his Q3 report, he claimed a 12% increase in client retention. My data showed a 4.2% drop. Slide 17 claimed vendor savings of $240K. The real spend. A bloated contract with Agile Synergy Solutions, solo approved by Tyler, marked up 180% from our last provider. I checked. Rechecked. Every cell screamed fraud dressed up as finesse. Then I remembered a tool one I hadn't touched in years. A backdoor analytics panel I built myself. Tucked behind a dummy URL protected by my biometric key. Meant for quality checks. Forgotten by everyone. Except me. And that was the moment I knew Tyler wasn't just a liar. He built his kingdom on my numbers. And I still held the blueprint. Now it wasn't just a backup system. It was a Rosetta Stone. I opened the hidden panel. Every log, every timestamp. Every deviation between what Tyler showed the board and what the system actually reported, intact. I could have walked away quietly. Update my LinkedIn to exploring new opportunities. Bake banana bread, post cryptic quotes about rising from ashes. Or I could light a match. There was a flicker at the base of my skull part, instinct part. Years of buried loyalty curdling into clarity. I'd been the fixer. The cover-up crew. I polished his last-minute decks, rewrote metrics he didn't understand, even stayed silent when he tried to slash holiday pay for the temps. And this was my thank you. A soulless email and a Slack emoji? No. Not after 19 years of being the safe pair of hands, the engine behind the curtain while Tyler smiled for the spotlight. I stared at the cursor in a blank email. Subject Q3 dashboard. Full access link. My finger hovered. Then I closed the laptop. Not yet. The truth wasn't just in the numbers. It lived in the quiet gaps between them. And if Tyler thought he'd buried me with a bland exit memo, he was about to learn something poetic, I built the ground he strutted on. Now I was removing my name from the blueprints. The kitchen clock blinked 5:47 a.m. I hadn't slept. Just paced with a mug of lukewarm decaf and a plan too sharp to ignore. At 6:03, I logged in not through the front door. They'd shut that down. I slipped through the crawl space I built years ago, buried deep in admin logic and forgotten subdomains. A dev shell no one else even noticed. /verify ops sync. No one ever asked what it did. What it did was open everything. Dashboards, raw logs, cost overrides, anomaly flags, event pings. And just like that, I was back in the system. But this time, I wasn't fixing anything. I was about to reveal it all. It was all there, humming like a quiet engine beneath the shiny reports Tyler spoon-fed to the board. My credentials were still active. Maybe an oversight, maybe luck. Either way, I wasn't about to waste it. I didn't download everything like some rogue hacker. This wasn't revenge, it was insurance. Surgical, clean. A folder of facts, not feelings. Q3's real data, raw KPIs, side-by-side comparisons with Tyler's fabricated version, Slack audit trails, blocked access logs, vendor payouts he accidentally misreported. I zipped it, encrypted it, uploaded to a locked drive, then built a read-only dashboard link, restricted, timed, controlled. Enough to show the truth without triggering a panic delete. I opened Outlook, drafted a message to the CEO, CFO, audit chair, and every board member I remembered. Subject, Q3 integrity review. No intro, no preamble, no goodbye. Just 2 words in the body check attachments. I added the link, attached the context file. Scheduled send, 9 USU AM sharp. Same time as Tyler's beloved quarterly board presentation. I'd seen him rehearsing, gesturing like a maestro, proud of his little miracle deck. He didn't know the music was mine. And in 1 hour, the board was going to hear what the real symphony sounded like. Dissonance and all. I leaned back. No rush, no thrill, just calm, clinical, exact. Like loading a weapon you built yourself. You know the weight, the recoil, where it lands. At 6:58 a.m., my access expired. I didn't flinch, just closed the laptop, sipped cold coffee, whispered, let the numbers speak. And across the building, Jasmine walked with purpose down the glass hallway. She'd only been there 3 months, but people noticed her. While Tyler tossed around buzzwords and bragged about alignment, Jasmine asked surgical questions and read every line. She didn't smile for cameras, didn't post Jewish grateful on LinkedIn. She read everything. And today, she was going to read mine. Jasmine asked questions that made men like Tyler forget what operational synergy even meant. I'd only crossed paths with her a few times, once at the elevator, once during a budget stand-up, where she calmly dismantled a forecast Tyler had rounded favorably. He blushed like a kid caught cheating on a math test. Weeks before my exit, Jasmine requested access to my raw dashboards. Not through Tyler, not through a filtered deck. She sent it directly using phrases like audit continuity and baseline clarity. I had just begun drafting a response when Tyler intercepted it. No need to burden Rachel, he replied. My team has the latest snapshots. That's when I knew he feared her. So when my scheduled email hit the boardroom at 8:59 a.m. sharp, it landed like a pin drop in a cathedral. Check attachments. Jasmine saw it first, mid-sip of her black coffee, scanning her deck when the Outlook ping vibrated under her palm. She opened it. No password. Just a time-triggered key tied to my old credentials. And there it was, the real dashboard. The one Tyler buried for over a year. She scanned it silently, burn rate variances, vendor inflation churn, mislabeling even HR shadow payments disguised as transitional equity. It read like a confession. But Jasmine didn't gasp, didn't blow a whistle. She just turned her head, locked eyes with the CEO, and gave a slow, deliberate nod. The CEO paused mid-slide. Tyler kept talking, his voice climbing gestures, twitching with faux confidence. We're proud of these numbers. A true team effort. But the room had already shifted. The CEO picked up his iPad. Jasmine whispered something, brief, razor sharp. Tyler didn't know what changed, only that it had. I wasn't in the room. I was sitting in my car in the Target parking lot, Taylor Swift humming low in the background. My inbox was silent. My phone didn't buzz. But something did. Deep in my chest. Not victory, not yet, but something just as strong. Recognition, not yet victory. But it felt like something close. Not applause, not hugs, just recognition. Jasmine never said my name. She didn't need to. By opening that link, by quietly showing it to the one person Tyler couldn't manipulate, she answered a question I didn't even know I'd been carrying. Would my work ever matter to someone who mattered? That morning, the answer was yes. A woman I barely knew had seen the truth, used it, trusted it. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. The boardroom was the kind of place where consequences usually came wrapped in euphemisms and pivot decks. But not today. Today, the walls were watching. Tyler was pacing like a man on a TED Talk stage, laser pointer in hand. His voice hit that syrupy tone reserved for spin. And as you'll see on slide 19, our churn rate has continued to decline, thanks to proactive client engagement, special thanks to the OPS team, which was rich considering he'd laid off half the OPS team last quarter. The CEO flipped through the deck silently. Jasmine, arms crossed, stayed still. On her tablet, my dashboard. Audit trails glowing like coals. She didn't even look at Tyler. Slide 23. Vendor spend. You'll notice a year-over-year drop in consulting costs. Tyler beamed. We consolidated into one efficiency-first provider. That's when Jasmine cleared her throat once. Precise. The room froze. Something to add, the CEO asked. She nodded. Yes. We received updated internal data this morning, clean dashboards, version logs. They differ significantly. Silence fell like a trapdoor. Tyler gave a thin laugh. I'm sure we can reconcile legacy systems, can skew vendor data. Jasmine tapped twice. The shared display didn't show Tyler's slides. It showed mine. Split screen. His metrics on the left, mine on the right, reality versus spin. Inflated KPIs, churn off by 9%, revenue smoothing that masked losses. A graph showed a 6% dip in customer lifetime value. His version claimed it was up by 4%. And those consolidated vendor contracts Tyler bragged about turned out to be 3 shell vendors, all billed under different LLCs, all tracing back to a consulting firm run by his old college roommate. Jasmine tapped the payment trail on her tablet, each transaction time-stamped. No oversight, no signatures, just solo approvals, each processed within 90 seconds of each other. The audit chair leaned forward. Tyler cared to explain why these flagged payments don't appear in the board packet. Tyler stammered. I wasn't aware Rachel's tools were still active. They weren't aligned with current reporting standards. She was let go? Jasmine cut in. I'm the one who requested access to her dashboards weeks ago. You blocked it. Said it was redundant. The CEO raised an eyebrow. Why block transparency, Tyler? He flailed. This is all out of context. Rachel's dashboards were always a bit noisy. That's why I centralized the reporting. Jasmine didn't blink. She pulled up a log. Metadata created 2018. Last modified 5 days ago. User R. Monroe. Accessed only by me. Immutable. Unedited. Unshared. The CEO leaned back in his chair. Noisy. Looks surgical to me. Tyler's face lost all color. The boardroom went predator, silent. Across town, I sat in a coffee shop by the window stirring cinnamon into a latte. I hadn't realized I'd ordered caffeine. Didn't care. Outside, the world moved, dogs on leashes, late buses, a guy yelling at a parking meter. My phone buzzed once, a news alert about some nonsense in DC. Nothing from work. And that silence, that was the win. No legal firestorm, no frantic PR cleanup. Just the quiet hum of truth finally drowning out the spin. I took a slow sip and let the heat settle in my chest. For the first time in weeks, I smiled, genuine and effortless. Tyler wasn't just slipping. He was unraveling. And the numbers, my numbers, were singing loud enough for everyone to hear. Tyler's voice had climbed a full octave. The sweat on his lip, no longer a glisten, now a full sheen. His talking points dissolved into corporate gibberish. But he had one move left: desperation. Less than 2 hours after the boardroom detonation, I got an email from a generic legal inbox. Subject: notice of potential breach. Immediate attention required. I read it from a back booth in a Vietnamese place off 4th, mid-bite of PHO. The formatting screamed legal, but the tone that reeked of Tyler. It has come to our attention that former employee Rachel M. may have accessed internal systems without authorization and shared proprietary data in violation of Policy 3.1. There it was, his Hail Mary. Flip the script. Paint me as the breach. I didn't panic. Didn't even set my spoon down. I forwarded it to my lawyer, well, technically my divorce attorney, but Linda's lethal in heels and allergic to corporate cowards. Then I opened the folder labeled Access Logs. Verified. Everything I'd accessed was before my credentials were revoked. Timestamp secure above board. I wasn't rogue. I was meticulous. Meanwhile, Jasmine was already 3 steps ahead. In a follow-up board session that same afternoon, Tyler tried to raise security concerns. Jasmine calmly publicly reminded the room that she'd personally requested access to my dashboard weeks prior. I was denied, she said flatly. No explanation, just flagged as redundant. She tapped her iPad, pulling up the email thread, complete with Tyler's smug, time-stamped reply. No need to burden her with QA. Didn't age well. The audit chair asked the only question that mattered. Tyler, were you aware these dashboards contain financial discrepancies when you blocked access? He said nothing, just swallowed. Jasmine followed. If I'd had access, these issues would have been flagged before Q3. Translation: the damage wasn't an accident. It was intent. Tyler went silent, not from shame, but calculation. Across town, I sat on a park bench, watching leaves drift. The boardroom was frozen, but I felt the air finally warming. My laptop was zipped away, tucked under the cafe bench, just breathing. Bracing. I'd watched enough corporate smear jobs to know this was the part where the villain bites back. Maybe Tyler would start leaking stories. Frame it as a bitter ex-employee vendetta. Pull a legal favor draft, a scare letter filled with bolded phrases like proprietary breach and willful misconduct. But I wasn't the woman I used to be. Not the quiet, loyal workhorse hoping for recognition crumbs. I was the architect of the numbers, the blueprint beneath the empire. And that empire? It wasn't built on truth. It was built on PowerPoint slides and hubris. Tyler didn't leave the boardroom. He was erased from it. A legal advisor leaned over, whispered something to the CEO, and the room was temporarily adjourned for closed session. Translation: Tyler, get out. He stood slowly, gripping his leather folio like a life preserver. No eye contact, no clever parting line. Just that stiff, stumbling walk of a man with no metrics left to fake. The door clicked shut behind him. Inside, silence. Outside, consequences. He sat alone on the hallway bench, the same one interns used, waiting for badge photos. Full circle. Meanwhile, I was walking the trail around Hollow Lake. Earbuds and no music playing. Just gravel underfoot and rain flirting with the canopy. Then my coat pocket buzzed. LinkedIn? From Jasmine: Rachel, I owe you lunch. 6 words. Casual on the surface, but in corporate dialect. That's a standing ovation. I stared at the screen for longer than I should have. Not because I didn't know how to reply. Because I didn't need to. For 19 years, I built with silence, while others collected praise for noise. Now the silence was speaking for me. Still doubt crept in like a cold draft under a locked door. I'd seen men like Tyler survive worse. The boardroom doesn't always run on truth. It runs on optics. And Tyler? He was a shapeshifter. He could cry, spin, beg for another shot. I could already see the PR release forming. We are committed to data transparency moving forward. I could already hear the press release in my head. Polished. Hollow. What if they let him stay? After everything, every number, every timestamp, every quiet hour I spent documenting the truth, what if I still ended up looking like the woman who overreacted? I slowed my steps. The lake ahead was so still it looked fake, like a postcard someone forgot to send. I stood there, not with rage, but with something heavier, fear. Not of being wrong. I'd swallowed years of disappointment like daily vitamins. But I needed this to mean something, not just for me, but for every invisible person who ever built a legacy someone else wore like a rented suit. I tucked my phone back in my coat and kept walking. Whatever they decided in that boardroom, I had told the truth. For once, I wasn't hoping to be rescued. I just hoped they didn't lie to themselves again. When the doors reopened, Tyler walked back in like a man trying to remember the last time he still had power. His hair looked flatter. His stance, hollow. He clutched a manila folder like it might save him. The CEO didn't blink, didn't gesture. He just said, cold and clear, you are finished here. No negotiations, no exit strategy, just termination. Immediate. Tyler tried to speak, but the board chair stood up and cut him off. We're done here. He left through the service exit. Badge deactivated, inbox wiped, name removed from the org chart before the elevator even touched the lobby. And me, I was in my garage, barefoot on cold concrete folding laundry like it was memory therapy. My phone buzzed a New York number. I answered. Rachel. This is Caroline Reed, chair of the board. Pause. Then gently, thank you. Another pause. We'd like to offer you a consulting contract. Help us clean this up. Make it right. However that looks, to you. It was the first time in 19 years someone asked me what right looked like. I thought about it, really thought about it. About stepping back into that building, that seat, that maze of echoes and old ghosts. And then I smiled. No, thank you, I told Caroline. I think I've already done what I came to do. She didn't argue, just said, if you ever change your mind, and hung up. I opened my email app, scrolled to the bottom, tapped Remove Account. The inbox vanished, like wiping a chalkboard clean after one final long lesson. I stepped outside. The clouds had finally broken. The morning sun hit the driveway like a quiet blessing. I didn't feel victorious, didn't cry, didn't laugh. I just felt done. Done carrying the weight for people who poked holes and called it leadership. Done patching things in silence. Done being the gear behind the curtain. My phone buzzed again. Recruiter. Big firm. Big salary. I didn't even open it. I just held down the power button until the screen went black. Not from anger, from freedom. I walked into the sun. No badge. No title. No borrowed identity. Just me. And for the first time in a very long time, that was enough. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening, for seeing me. This story isn't just mine. It belongs to anyone who's ever stayed quiet while someone louder took the credit. Anyone who's patched leaks in silence while the so-called leaders gave speeches about vision. I know I'm not alone. I know some of you are still sitting in that office chair, still smiling through someone else's storm, still waiting for a thank you that might never come. So here's what I ask. Leave a comment. Not for me, but for every Rachel out there. Tell me what resonated. Tell me your version. Or just say something to remind the silent workers that they do matter even when the systems say otherwise. And if you've been carrying someone else's weight too long, here's my advice. Build your own blueprint. Quietly if you must. Strategically if you can. But do not confuse being invisible with being powerless. Sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one nobody thought was watching. I didn't get justice through rage. I got it through records, through preparation, through holding my ground when they expected me to crumble. And now I don't want my job back. I don't want their praise. I just want the truth to echo louder than their spin for once. So if this story hit home, hit that like button. Subscribe for more. Not because the algorithm told you to, but because someone out there is still waiting to feel seen. And maybe, just maybe your comment is the proof they need to keep going. We carry each other in small ways. This is one of them. Rachel.